Eleanor Whitfield gripped the silver tray knuckles white, while 3 feet beyond the parlor door, her husband called her useful for nothing but an heir. She did not drop the tray. She did not weep. She turned, walked the servants' corridor, and pressed one hand against the soft swell of her belly, the unborn son he would never deserve to hold. Before we begin, kindly tap subscribe and stay with this story till the very end. And tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from? I'd love to know how far this story has traveled tonight. The morning Eleanor Whitfield Harrow learned she was carrying a child, she did not tell her husband. She told the mirror first. She stood at the dressing table with both palms flat against her stomach and stayed there a long while, as though her hands could hear something her ears had not yet learned to believe. Then the door opened behind her. "Mrs. Harrow?" "Come in, Ruth." Ruth Bell set the tea tray down and looked at her once hard. "You're white as church linen, ma'am. You ailing?" "No." "Don't know me. I've known your face since you wore pigtails." Eleanor's mouth twitched at the corner. "Sit a minute, Ruth." Ruth sat. She was 48 years old, broad-shouldered, a free woman of color, who had come with Eleanor from her father's house at Whitfield 3 summers back. She wore a clean gray dress with the sleeves rolled to the elbow against the August heat, and her hands were folded the way a woman folds her hands when she suspects bad news. "Ruth," Eleanor said, "I'm with child." Ruth did not gasp. She did not cry out. She closed her eyes for one long moment and opened them shining. "Praise be," she whispered. "Praise be, Miss Eleanor." "Dr. Mercer came yesterday from the village. He says I'm near the 4th month." "4th month and you ain't told a soul." "I wanted to be certain." "Mr. Harrow?" Eleanor did not answer. Ruth's jaw set. "Mrs. Harrow." "I'll tell him tonight, Ruth. At the political supper, with all them congressmen and their pipe smoke and their port wine. After supper, when the men go through to the parlor for Madeira, I'll carry the tray myself. I'll find a moment, and I'll tell him." For a long while, Ruth said nothing. She poured a cup of tea the color of weak honey, and her hand did not tremble, though her mouth was tight as a drawstring. "And what do you reckon he'll say?" "He'll say what a husband says, Ruth." "Yes, ma'am. He's been waiting 3 years." "Yes, ma'am. He's been waiting." Eleanor took the cup from her, and Ruth did not look at her, and for a moment the only sound in the room was the small clink of porcelain meeting saucer. "Ruth." "Yes, ma'am." "Speak." "Ain't my place, Mrs. Harrow." "It's always your place. Speak." Ruth folded her hands again. Her eyes did not lift. "I've been carrying this house's linen 3 summers, Miss Eleanor. I've been bringing his shirts down to the wash and bringing 'em up clean. I know which side of the bed he sleeps on and which side he don't. And I know when a man comes home to a wife and when a man comes home to a house." "Ruth." "I'm saying it because you told me to." "Go on." "He comes home to a house, ma'am. He don't come home to you." Eleanor set the teacup down. Her hand did not shake. That was the first sign, though she did not know it yet, that something inside her had already begun preparing for the evening. "He'll change his mind when I tell him." "Yes, ma'am." "He will, Ruth." "Yes, ma'am." "Stop yes-ma'aming me." "Yes, ma'am." Eleanor laughed very softly, and for a heartbeat it almost sounded like the old laugh, the one she had brought with her from her father's house. Almost. By the time the bell rang from the south field, she had bathed and dressed in the cream-colored gown she had not worn since the spring assembly, and Ruth had brushed and pinned her hair, and she was a woman ready to give a man news that would change his life. She did not know yet that nothing would change but her. Nathaniel Harrow rode in from the lower fields at 4 o'clock. She heard his boots on the porch and the quick exchange he always had with Caleb the stable boy, about which mare was favoring her right foreleg. She stood at the top of the stair with her hand on the banister, and she waited for him to look up. He looked up. "Eleanor." "Mr. Harrow." "You're dressed." "It's the supper tonight." "I know it's the supper. I meant you're already dressed." He handed his hat to a footman without looking. He was tall, narrow at the hip, dark-haired, sun-darkened from the tobacco fields. 31 years old. The bearing of a man who had been told from boyhood that he would one day matter to the Commonwealth of Virginia. "I'd like a word with you before they come." "It's almost 4:30, Eleanor. They'll be here at 6. "Then it'll be a short word." He climbed the stair. He did not kiss her cheek. He had not kissed her cheek in 20 months, and she had long since stopped counting which month it had become a habit not to. "What is it?" She looked at him for a long moment. He was a handsome man. She had loved his face once. She would think about that later with a kind of distant wonder, as though she were reading about it in a stranger's letters. "Are Senator Pendleton and Mr. Marsh both coming?" His expression cleared. He preferred questions he could answer with facts. "Both. And Colonel Hayes. And Marsh's brother-in-law down from Richmond. 5 of us at table with you." 6 then." 6, yes." "What does Senator Pendleton take with his Madeira?" "He'll drink what's poured. Eleanor, you have something to say." "Later." "Now is fine." "Later, Mr. Harrow, after supper, in the parlor." He frowned. Then he shrugged the way a man shrugs at a small thing, and he passed her on the stair and went into his dressing room and closed the door. She stood on the landing a long while. When she came down for the supper, she carried herself the way her mother had taught her, chin-level, shoulders back, hands folded at the waist. Her mother had been dead 9 years, and Eleanor had carried her body that way every day since. The supper itself she would not remember well afterward. She would remember the way Colonel Hayes spoke of the Indian treaties as though the men inside them were furniture. She would remember the way Senator Pendleton smiled at her too long and too softly when he said her father had been a fine man and a finer judge. She would remember Mr. Marsh's brother-in-law mistaking her for Nathaniel's sister and Nathaniel correcting him without apology. "My wife, sir, Mrs. Harrow. My mistake. A pleasure, ma'am." "The pleasure is mine." It was not. She ate 3 bites of duck and 1 bite of pear and drank half a glass of water. By 8 o'clock, the men had gone out to finish their cigars on the back terrace, and by 1:30 they had come back through to the parlor for the Madeira. She rose from her chair. "I'll bring it myself, Ruth." "Mrs. Harrow." "I'll bring it myself." Ruth handed her the silver tray. 6 small glasses on it, ruby dark, trembling faintly with the weight of her steps. She walked the length of the dining hall and into the back corridor that ran behind the parlor, and at the door she paused, because the door was half open, and because she could hear them. She had not meant to listen. Colonel Hayes first. "You're a fortunate man, Harrow. Fortunate. Pendleton tells me her father left her 140 acres on the Shenandoah. 160. 160 then. By God." "A man does what a man must, Colonel." There was laughter. It was not unkind laughter. It was the laughter of men who had been raised together and who had agreed long ago what was funny. Senator Pendleton said, "She's a quiet thing, your wife. Pretty as a wren. Speaks when spoken to." "She does." "You ever wish she spoke a little more?" "No." More laughter. "Marriage," Nathaniel said, and Eleanor heard the deliberate rounding of his voice, the way he sounded when he was about to be quoted. "Marriage is the cheapest investment a man of property can make." Hear, hear. You give a woman your name. She gives you a parcel of land, a tolerable reputation, and if God smiles a son, the arithmetic is simple. And if God don't smile, then God don't smile. You build a wing on the east side of the house, you put her in it, and you ride to Richmond on Fridays. The men laughed harder. The tray in Eleanor's hands did not move. She felt every glass on it. She felt the silver beneath her thumbs. She felt the place where her right palm was beginning to sweat against the handle, and she did not let it slip. Marsh's brother-in-law said, "Come now, Harrow, be honest. You ever care for the girl?" "Care," Nathaniel said, and the word was not unkind, which was the worst part of it. "Care is a word boys use. I have a gentle burden, gentlemen. She runs my house well. She doesn't argue. She'll give me an heir or she won't. And if she does, then once that heir is weaned, She may live out her years on the East Wing, and I'll see her at Christmas dinner, like a kind aunt. By God, Harrow. It's the honest answer. I won't pretend to a poet's heart at this table. Not after the third Madeira. There was a small silence. Then Senator Pendleton said, "You always were the cold-blooded one, Nat." "I'm the practical one." "Same thing." "Pour the man another glass, Marsh. He's getting sentimental in his old age." The laughter rose again and rolled and crested. Eleanor stood 3 feet from the door. She did not drop the tray. She did not move. She would think later that there had been a moment in there, one heartbeat, perhaps two, when her body might have done a different thing, might have crashed the tray against the parquet, might have flung the door open and shamed them in front of God and Virginia, might have wept aloud the way a wife was supposed to weep when she discovered a thing like this. Her body did none of those things. Her body did the thing it had been raised to do. It turned, slowly, with the tray steady. It walked on bone-quiet slippers back along the corridor it had come down. It passed through the dining hall where the candles had burned down by a half-inch since she had risen from the table. It passed Ruth in the pantry without speaking. "Mrs. Harrow?" Eleanor walked past her. "Mrs. Harrow." "The Madeira." Eleanor walked past her. "Miss Eleanor." She stopped at the foot of the back stair. She set the tray down on the low oak chest beneath the window. The 6 glasses chimed once very softly, the way bells chime when a child runs past a sleeping church. She straightened. She put one hand against the banister. She turned and looked at Ruth. "Take the tray in, please." "Ma'am." "Take it in. Pour them another round. Smile at Colonel Hayes. He likes a smile from a colored woman. He won't notice you're not me." "Mrs. Harrow, what's happened?" "Take it in, Ruth." Ruth picked up the tray. Her hands shook for the first time that night. "I'll come up directly." "No, stay with them. Until they leave. I want to be alone." "Miss Eleanor." "Please." Ruth went. Eleanor climbed the back stair. She did not weep on the stair. She did not weep on the landing. She walked the long carpeted hall to her bedroom, and she shut the door, and she sat down on the edge of the bed in her cream-colored gown. She pressed both hands flat against her stomach. "Hello," she said very quietly, into the small dark space between her ribs and her hands. "Hello, my heart." That was when she wept. It was not loud. It was the kind of weeping a woman did when she had been raised in a house where weeping was considered a failure of breeding. Her shoulders did not shake. Her face did not crumble. 2 tears went down her cheeks and onto the cream silk above her stomach, and a third followed and a fourth, and then she stopped because she heard a sound she did not recognize. It was her own voice. "He won't have you," she said into her hands. "Do you hear me, child? He won't have you." Ruth came up at 10:30. The door opened without a knock. Ruth always knocked. Tonight she did not. "They've gone. All of them." "Senator Pendleton's gone to bed in the guest wing." The others rode out. "And Mr. Harrow, in his study, with what's left of the port." Ruth stood in the doorway with the candle in her hand, and she looked at Eleanor, and Eleanor looked at her, and neither of them said the thing they were both thinking. Eleanor said, "I want a basin of warm water, ma'am. And I want my hair down." "Mrs. Harrow, what happened in the parlor?" "My hair, Ruth." Ruth set the candle down and came to her. She unpinned Eleanor's hair without speaking, and the long brown weight of it fell down Eleanor's back, and Ruth ran the soft brush through it, the way she had done every night for 3 summers, and Eleanor sat very still, and Eleanor did not weep again. "Ruth." "Yes, ma'am." "What did my mother say to me the morning of my wedding?" "Miss Eleanor." "You were there. You remember?" "I remember." "Say it back to me." Ruth's hand paused mid-stroke. She said, "A woman who can't hold her tongue can't hold a household." "Yes." And she said, "A wife is judged by the silences she keeps, not the words she says." "Yes." And she said one more thing. "Miss Eleanor." "Say it, Ruth." Ruth set the brush down. She turned Eleanor by the shoulders so that Eleanor faced her, and she crouched in front of the bed and took both of Eleanor's hands in her own, and her thumbs were rough where they had carried other people's laundry. She said, Ruth said softly, Eleanor, if the day ever comes when you must leave him before you tell him why. Yes. Miss Eleanor, what happened in the parlor? Nothing that wasn't always there, Ruth. Tell me. He said I was a gentle burden. He said when I give him his heir, I'm to live on the East Wing and see him at Christmas dinner like a kind aunt. Ruth did not speak. He didn't know I was at the door. He didn't say it to hurt me. He said it because it's true, because he means it, because that's what I am to him and what I always was, and the only reason he hasn't already moved me to the East Wing is that I haven't yet given him the thing he requires. Lord. He laughed, Ruth. They all laughed. Lord, Miss Eleanor. And here is the thing. Eleanor's voice did not break. It went very small and very level, the way a creek goes small and level in a drought year. Here is the thing. I was carrying his glass of Madeira. I was going to tell him in front of the fire. I had the words. I had the words ready. What words, ma'am? I was going to say, Mr. Harrow, I am with child, our child. I'd practiced it in the mirror. I'd practiced where I would stand and how I would breathe. I had a little speech. And you said nothing. I said nothing. Will you say it tomorrow? No, Ruth. Ma'am. He won't have it tomorrow either. Ruth's hands tightened on hers. Miss Eleanor? He wanted an heir, Ruth. He wanted an heir and the East Wing. He is going to have neither. Not from me. Not from this child. He's the child's father. He is the child's father by blood. He will be nothing else. Do you hear me? I hear you. I will not give him a son to laugh about in a parlor. I will not give him a son to weigh against 160 acres. I will not give him a son so that he may move me to the East Wing of this house and ride to Richmond on Fridays. Miss Eleanor, I'll go to the valley. Ruth's mouth opened. My father's land, Eleanor said. The Shenandoah parcel, the one Pendleton was just calculating in the parlor over my husband's Madeira. That land is mine. It was my mother's before me. The deed is in my brother's keeping in Richmond. I will write to Jonathan tomorrow. Mrs. Harrow, you can't. I can. A married woman? A married woman can do a great deal when her brother is a Whitfield, and her husband does not yet know what she knows. Ruth sat back on her heels. She studied Eleanor's face a long moment. The candle on the side table sputtered once. The clock in the hall struck 11. Yes, ma'am. You'll come with me. Yes, ma'am. You don't have to. Don't insult me, Miss Eleanor. Eleanor laughed. It was a small, broken, very young laugh, and it surprised her, and it stopped at once. I won't insult you, Ruth. And the child? The child will be born in the valley. Dr. Mercer will come. Jonathan will come. I will not need him. Mr. Harrow. I will not need him. And if he comes, he will not come. Miss Eleanor, if he comes. Eleanor's hands let go of Ruth's. She rose from the bed and walked to the window and put her palm flat against the cool glass. She did not turn around when she spoke. If he comes, Ruth, he comes to a woman he has never met. Because the woman he married, the gentle burden of his parlor, is going to die tonight in this room, and the woman who lives in the valley by autumn will not be her. Lord help us. Lord won't help us, Ruth. Lord helps men. Women help each other. There was a long silence. Then Ruth stood. Yes, ma'am. Pack only what fits in the 2 small trunks. Linen, 2 of the plain gowns, the blue cloak, my mother's Bible, the writing case. Yes, ma'am. Don't tell the kitchen. Don't tell Caleb. Don't tell anyone in this house. No, ma'am. And Ruth. Ma'am. Tomorrow morning when Mr. Harrow comes down to breakfast, I want a violet on his plate. Ruth blinked. A violet, ma'am? 1 single violet, from the south garden, the way I used to leave them when I still believed. Ma'am, you said, I want him to see it. I want him to look at it, and I want him not to know what it means, and I want him to leave for the lower fields without asking. because that is the last violet he will ever receive from me in this life. Ruth and I want him to walk past it like a fool. Yes, ma'am. And then I want you to take it off the plate after he's gone. And then we begin. The violet was on the plate at 6 minutes past 7. Ruth set it down herself. A single one, blue-purple the stem trimmed clean, laid beside the silver fork, the way Eleanor had laid them every morning for the first 8 months of her marriage, and had not laid them once in the 16 months that followed. Eleanor sat across the table. She did not look at the violet. She looked at her tea. Nathaniel came in at 1:15 in his riding coat, smelling of horse and tobacco and the morning. He sat. He shook out his napkin. He picked up his fork. He cut his ham. He ate it. He cut a second slice. The violet stayed where it was 3 inches from his plate, the same color the sky had been at 5 o'clock when Eleanor had not slept. "You're up early," he said. "Yes, Mr. Harrow." "Sleep poorly." "Tolerably." "Pendleton's gone before dawn, said to give you his regards." "That was kind of him." "He thinks you're a handsome woman." "Did he?" "He said it twice." She lifted her tea and drank. Nathaniel cut a 3rd slice of ham. The violet did not move, and his eyes did not move toward it. Not once. She had her answer. A man who had loved a woman once would notice when she left him a flower again after 16 months of empty plates. A man who had only possessed her did not see it sitting where his butter knife had been. "More tea, Mr. Harrow." "Please," she poured. He rose at 7:30, kissed the air near her temple. He had not kissed her temple itself in over a year, and left for the lower fields. The door shut. The clock ticked. Ruth came in from the pantry and stopped 3 feet from the table, the way a woman stops when she sees a body she has not yet been told is dead. He didn't see it. "No, Ruth." Not even. He looked through it like it was a salt cellar. Ruth came to the table and picked up the violet. The petals had begun to curl at the edges from the heat of the room. She closed her hand around it. "What now, ma'am?" "Now I write to Jonathan." "In Richmond." "In Richmond. And you take the letter to the post rider at the crossroads, not the house rider, the one that runs the Charlottesville stage. He don't come till Wednesday. Then we wait till Wednesday. That's 3 days. 3 days. Eleanor said, is nothing. We have until November." The letter took her 2 hours to write. She wrote it in the small back parlor where the morning sun did not reach until 10 o'clock. She wrote it standing because if she sat, her hands shook and she would not have her brother see a Whitfield woman's hand shaking on a page. She wrote in plain language the way her father had taught her. A Whitfield says the thing once says it true and does not repeat it. "Dear Jonathan, I am with child. I am leaving him. I am coming to the valley." Then she stopped, because that was 3 sentences, and her father had taught her 4 was the limit. She added, "I will tell you the rest in your own parlor." She folded the letter and sealed it, and wrote her brother's name across the front in a hand that did not tremble. She gave it to Ruth at noon. "You don't read this. You don't show this. You don't say my name when you hand it over." "Ma'am?" "And Ruth." "Yes, Mrs. Harrow. If anything happens to me, if I am taken ill, if I do not come down to breakfast, if Mr. Harrow asks you a question and your face moves, you burn this letter and you say nothing, and you tell my brother only when you are in his presence, not before. Miss Eleanor, promise me. I promise you. Go." Ruth went. Eleanor stood at the back window and watched her cross the kitchen garden in her gray dress and her clean kerchief, and she did not move from the window until Ruth was past the smokehouse and out of sight on the post road. Then she sat down on the floor. She did not faint. Whitfield women did not faint. She simply sat down because her knees had decided without consulting her that they were done holding her up for the morning. Dr. Silas Mercer came the following Tuesday. He came in the afternoon when Nathaniel was at the courthouse in town for the property session, and he came in through the kitchen the way Ruth had asked him to. He was 61 years old, white-haired, narrow-faced, with the hands of a man who had delivered 300 babies and lost 42 of them, and remembered every name. He examined her in the small back parlor with the door locked. 4 months and a fortnight, Mrs. Harrow. Yes. You're well? Heartbeat strong? Baby's small, but it ought to be at this stage. I mean to travel, Dr. Mercer. He set down his stethoscope. To where? The Shenandoah Valley. My father's old place, past Front Royal. By coach. By coach to Charlottesville. By private carriage from there. 3 days, perhaps 4. When? Before the end of August. Mrs. Harrow. Tell me what I need to know. He was silent a long moment. He had a habit, when he was about to say something hard, of taking off his spectacles and folding them with both hands and setting them in his palm like a small dead bird. You're a small woman, Mrs. Harrow. I know that. A small woman in her first child, in August, on a Virginia road. Yes, there's heat. There's the jostling. There's no doctor between here and Charlottesville I would trust with you, and only one I would trust past that, and he is in Winchester and may be drunk. I understand. You could lose the baby. You could lose yourself. Yes. He looked at her. You're going anyway. I am. Mrs. Harrow. Doctor. Why? She did not answer for a long moment. Then she said very quietly, because if I stay, Dr. Mercer, the child will grow up in a house where his father is ashamed of having him from me, and I have decided no child of mine is going to learn what shame tastes like before he learns what milk tastes like. Dr. Mercer put his spectacles back on. I'll ride with you as far as Charlottesville. Doctor, no. I will ride with you as far as Charlottesville, Mrs. Harrow, and I will not hear another word about it. I have known your family 30 years. Your mother delivered her first dead in a coach on the Richmond Road. I am not delivering her daughter the same. She did not weep. She nodded once. Thank you. Don't thank me. Pay me. In gold. So Harrow can't trace it through his banks. You'll have it. He gathered his bag. At the door he stopped. Mrs. Harrow. Doctor, whatever it is he's done to you, child, I'm sorry. He left through the kitchen. She did not move from the chair for a long time after he was gone. The disappearances began that evening. The blue gown went first, the heavy one, with the silver thread she had worn to her father's funeral. Ruth took it down, folded it, put it in the smaller of the 2 trunks in the cedar closet. Then the green wool. Then the lavender. Then the writing desk Eleanor's mother had given her at 15, the small portable one with the brass corners. The desk was the trouble. Ruth came into the small parlor on the second Tuesday and shut the door behind her, and Eleanor knew before Ruth opened her mouth that something had gone sideways. Miss Eleanor. What? The stable boy. Caleb. Caleb. He seen me bringin' the desk down the cellar stair last night. Eleanor set down her sewing. Did he say anything? He said, Where's Mrs. Harrow's desk going, Miss Ruth? He said it twice. Bring him to the back garden after dark. Ma'am, he's 14 years old. I know how old he is. Bring him. Ruth brought him. He came in with his cap in both hands and his eyes on his boots, a thin, freckle-faced boy who had been born on the farm and who had known Eleanor since she had come there a bride. Caleb. Ma'am? Look at me. He looked up. I'm going to ask you a thing, and I'm going to ask it once. If you say yes, and I'll trust you with what's mine. If you say no, and you walk back to the stable and never mention this conversation again. Do you understand me? Yes, ma'am. Can you keep a secret from Mr. Harrow? His eyes went wide. Mrs. Harrow. Yes or no, Caleb? He looked at her a long moment. Mr. Harrow whipped my pa, ma'am, 8 years back, for a horse that wasn't his fault. I know he did. I've been waiting, ma'am, my whole life to do something for somebody in this house that wasn't him. She put a hand to her mouth and held it there a moment, then lowered it and nodded. Then you and Ruth and I have an understanding. Yes, ma'am. And when the day comes that I leave this house, you'll be on the front box of the carriage. Yes, ma'am. Go. He went. The books came down next, 16 of them in 3 weeks. Wollstonecraft first, then the Burns, then the Plutarch her father had given her at 18, with her name written in the cover. She put dummy volumes from the unused library in their places, the spines of old sermons Nathaniel would never reach for, set facing out, so any glance at the shelf would find it still full of books, only not the books Eleanor had read. Nathaniel noticed one. He came into her sitting room on a Thursday evening with his finger on a missing spot in the shelf. Eleanor. Yes, Mr. Harrow. The Burns is gone. Is it? I wanted to read Tam O'Shanter to Marsh's boy tomorrow. I'll find it. You have it here. I had it last week. I returned it. Perhaps Ruth dusted it onto another shelf. He looked at her. She did not blink. Eleanor. Yes. Are you well? Perfectly. You seem. I seem what, Mr. Harrow? He looked at her another moment, and she let him look. She had practiced this. The slightly raised brow. The mild interest. The small empty smile that said nothing was different, and nothing had ever been different. You seem tired. I sleep badly in August. I always have. Yes. Good night, Mr. Harrow. Good night. He left. She sat at her dressing table and did not move for 15 minutes. That was the first night he had asked her if she was well in 11 months. She knew because she had been counting. The reply from Richmond came on a Friday. Ruth brought it up under her apron and laid it in Eleanor's lap and stood by the door so that the hallway was watched. Jonathan's hand was the same hand it had been when he was 12, large and impatient and slanted forward as though he were leaning into the page to get the thing said. Eleanor. The Valley house is opened. Mrs. Tate is in the kitchen. The well is good. The roof is sound in the south wing and bad in the north, and I have men on the north. 6 rooms ready by the 1st of September. There is a cradle from our mother's house in the attic, and I have ordered it brought down. There is a midwife in Front Royal named Anna Coombs, who delivered 17 of our cousins, and I have written to her. Dr. Mercer's name will not be on any paper of mine. Come when you can. Come safely. Tell me nothing in letters I have not already heard. Your brother Jonathan. She read it 3 times. Then she folded it and held it against her stomach for 1 full minute, the way a woman holds something against the small life inside her when she means to tell that life it is going to be all right, even when she is not yet sure. Ruth. Ma'am. We go in 9 days. 9 days? Yes. Mr. Harrow will be at the militia review in Lynchburg. 3 full days. Time enough for the roads. Yes, ma'am. Burn this letter. Ruth burned it in the bedroom fire. He came to her door on the 8th night. He had not come to her door in 5 months. He stood in the corridor in his shirt sleeves with a candle in his hand and tapped twice, and Eleanor, who had been lying awake with her hand on her stomach, sat up so quickly the room turned. Eleanor. Mr. Harrow. May I come in? She did not answer. He came in anyway. He set the candle down on the dresser. I'm leaving for Lynchburg tomorrow. Yes, 3 days. I know. He stood in the middle of the room, and for the first time in a long time, she looked at him properly. He had aged that summer. 2 small lines at the corners of his mouth that had not been there in spring. I thought, yes. I thought I might stay tonight. In here, Mr. Harrow. In here. She did not speak for a moment. She had practiced this too. She had practiced it the way an actress practices a difficult line in the mirror with her hands folded with her face turned slightly toward the imagined window. She had practiced because she had known he would come, because a man about to lose a woman he had not noticed losing always came one night before he lost her, and he never knew that was why. No, Mr. Harrow. No. No. Eleanor. I am tired tonight. You have been tired all summer. I have. Is something wrong with you? Nothing is wrong with me. He stood another moment, then he picked up the candle and went to the door. At the door he turned. Eleanor. Yes. When I come back from Lynchburg? Yes. I would like to talk to you. About what, Mr. Harrow? About us. She was glad the candle was in his hand, and not in hers, because her hand had begun to shake at last, 3 weeks too late for it to matter. "When you return," she said, "we will talk." He left. She did not sleep that night. She left 2 mornings later. She did not run. She walked down the front stair at 5:30 with her gloves on and her bonnet tied and her 2 small trunks already in the carriage at the side door. Caleb was at the reins. Ruth was beside her. Dr. Mercer was waiting at the crossroads. She did not write Nathaniel a letter. A letter would have been the kind of thing a wife wrote. She left instead the silver tea service on the breakfast table polished with 3 cups set out. One for him. One for Senator Pendleton when he came through next Tuesday. And one empty, the saucer turned upside down for her. He would see it. He would not understand it. He would in time. The carriage was past the gate by 6. She did not look back. She had thought she would. She had practiced not looking back too, because that was the kind of detail her mother would have warned her about. A Whitfield woman, her mother had said, does not give a leaving man the gift of her face. So Eleanor sat with her hands in her lap, and her eyes on the road ahead, and Ruth holding her left hand, and the carriage rolled past the south fields, where the tobacco was tall and she did not look back. He found her in Charlottesville. He had ridden 2 days and a night. He had not changed his shirt. His horse was lathered. He came into the inn parlor where she was taking tea with Dr. Mercer, and he stopped in the doorway, and the room around him went quiet, the way a room goes quiet when a man comes in carrying a thing he does not yet know is grief. "Eleanor." "Mr. Harrow." "You will come home with me." "No, Mr. Harrow." "Eleanor." "Sit down. You're frightening the innkeeper." He did not sit. Dr. Mercer rose, gathered his coat, nodded once at Eleanor, and left them. Ruth stepped to the corner of the room and folded her hands. The innkeeper's wife went into the back kitchen and closed the door. Nathaniel crossed to the table. "You'll come home with me. Now. Tonight." "No." "Why?" "For my health." "Your health?" "Yes." "Eleanor, I am not a fool." "You are not a fool, Mr. Harrow." "Then tell me what this is." She set her teacup down. She had practiced this last. She had practiced it more than any other sentence she had ever spoken in her life, more than her wedding vows, more than the prayer she had said over her mother's grave, more than the good night she had said to him every night for 3 years. She looked up at him. "I am with child, Mr. Harrow." He went still. "What?" "Near the 5th month." "Eleanor." "Since the night you explained to Colonel Hayes what I was worth." He did not move. "Eleanor, you wanted an heir," she said, "and distance." She picked up her teacup. Her hand did not shake. It had stopped shaking 2 weeks ago and had not started again. It would not start again, and she knew it. "I am giving you both." He stared at her. For a long time he did not move. He stood at the head of the table with his coat unbuttoned and his hair damp at the temple, and his eyes on her face, and he did not move, and Eleanor did not move either. Then he sat down. He sat down slowly in the chair across from her, because his legs had stopped doing what he had told them to do. "How long?" "I told you. Near the 5th month." "That night." "That night, Mr. Harrow." "With Hayes." "With Hayes, and Pendleton, and Marcia's brother-in-law. I was at the door with the Madeira." "You were 3 feet." He put one hand flat on the table. "You heard." "All of it." "All of the gentle burden, the East Wing, the Friday to Richmond, the arithmetic, Mr. Harrow. I heard the arithmetic." "Eleanor, you forgot to subtract me from the column." His hand on the table closed slowly into a fist, and then opened again. "That night was what?" "I had been drinking." "You had." "I was talking to men. Men talk that way to each other when there are no women in the room." "There was a woman in the room, Mr. Harrow. She was at the door with your wine." "Eleanor, you did not know she was there. That is not the same as her not being there." He looked away. She watched him look away. She had practiced this. She had practiced it the way a lawyer practices a cross-examination, knowing in advance what each excuse would be and what its weight would be on the scale. "Try again, Mr. Harrow." "Eleanor? Try again. You have more in the bag. I know you do." "You came all this way." "Yes." "To leave me." "To leave you. For a sentence I said over Madeira." "For an arithmetic, Mr. Harrow, not a sentence." "For God's sake, Eleanor." "For God's sake, indeed." His jaw worked. "You did not give me the chance to—" "To what?" "To explain." "You explained, Mr. Harrow. You explained for 20 minutes in your own parlor to 4 men who laughed. You explained more thoroughly that night than any sermon I have heard in this Commonwealth." "That is not what I—" "Then what did you mean?" He did not answer. "What did you mean, Mr. Harrow?" He still did not answer. "You meant it?" she said. "Say so. I will sit here all afternoon for that one sentence." He looked at her. He looked at her a long time. Then he said very quietly, "I meant most of it." She nodded once. "Thank you." Eleanor. "Thank you, Mr. Harrow. That is the first honest thing you have said to me in 11 months. Sit with it. I will pour you more tea." She poured. Her hand did not shake. He did not pick up the cup. "It is not the whole of what I think." "Tell me the rest, then. The honest rest." "I think— yes. I think I do not know how to love a woman without making her smaller." She did not expect that. She did not expect it because she had practiced for the excuses and the pleas and the bargaining and the law. She had not practiced for honesty. And now honesty was sitting across the table in a damp shirt with 2 days of road on it, and her chest was doing something she had not given it permission to do. "That is closer," she said. "Eleanor. That is closer to the thing, Mr. Harrow. But it is still not the thing." "Then what is the thing?" "The thing is that you did know how once. You knew how in the second summer. You wrote me a letter from the legislature in Williamsburg that I have not let myself read since November. You knew how to love me without making me smaller, and then you forgot, and you did not notice you had forgotten, and that is what I am leaving." He went very still. "What letter?" "The one from Williamsburg." "The May letter, Mr. Harrow. You signed it, your own foolish husband who is learning. I have it in my writing case. It traveled in the trunk with my Bible." He put his face in his hands. He did not weep. Men of his bearing did not weep at noon in a public inn. But he put his face in his hands and held it there a long minute, and Eleanor watched the back of his head, the dark hair just beginning to thread silver at the temple, and she felt the thing she had spent 8 weeks training not to feel. She felt sorry for him. She let herself feel it for one count of 3, the way she had once let herself look at the back garden in November before the frost killed the roses. Then she stopped. "Mr. Harrow?" "Eleanor?" "Look at me." He lifted his head. "You will not stop me." "Eleanor, you will not stop me. You will not raise your voice. You will not call the magistrate. You will not write to my brother. You will not come after this carriage. If you try, I will tell Jonathan and Dr. Mercer and 3 Whitfield aunts in Richmond exactly what you said in your parlor on the 3rd of July, and I will tell it loud, and your seat in the Virginia House will be a memory by Michaelmas." "You would?" "I would. I have practiced." He looked at her. "You have practiced what you would say to ruin me." "I have practiced what I would say to free myself, Mr. Harrow. The ruin of you would be a consequence, not a purpose." "By God, Eleanor." "By God, indeed." He tried then the thing she had been waiting for him to try. He reached across the table and put his hand on her wrist. "Eleanor." "The child." "Take your hand off me." "The child is mine. By law." "Take your hand off me, Mr. Harrow." "By law, the child is mine and I." "Ruth." Ruth was already moving from the corner of the room. "Yes, ma'am." "Tell Mr. Harrow what you wrote down on the 2nd of August and what you signed and what Dr. Mercer signed." Ruth came to the table. She looked at Nathaniel once and then at Eleanor. "I wrote a deposition, sir. of what Mrs. Harrow heard in the parlor that night, word for word. I had her tell me twice. Dr. Mercer signed it as witness. It is in a strong box in Richmond with Mr. Jonathan Whitfield. Nathaniel did not move. "It will not be opened, Mr. Harrow," Eleanor said. "If you do not open it, do not open it." His hand left her wrist. He sat back in the chair. For a long while he did not speak. The clock on the inn parlor wall ticked off a minute and another minute and a third. The innkeeper's wife passed the door once and looked in and went away again without a sound. "Eleanor." "Yes." "What do you want?" "I have told you. I want to leave. Beyond that, I want to be seen." "By whom?" "By the man I married. If he is still alive in there, I want him to come to the valley in the autumn when the leaves have turned, and I want him to come without his coat unbuttoned and his horse lathered. I want him to ask to be allowed to listen, not to speak, to listen. And then we will see Mr. Harrow. We will see whether listening is a thing you can still learn. And until then, you go home. You sit in the parlor where you said it. You drink your Madeira alone. And you think very carefully about which woman you married and which woman you were married to, because they were not the same woman, and one of them is leaving for the valley today, and the other one died in her bedroom on the 3rd of July at 10:30. He closed his eyes. When he opened them, they were wet, and she did not look away, because she had practiced not looking away too. "Eleanor." "Goodbye, Mr. Harrow." She stood. He did not stand. She walked past him to the door. Ruth followed. At the door, Eleanor stopped because she had one more thing to say, and it was not the thing she had practiced, and her hand was on the door frame to steady it. "You said the arithmetic was simple." "Yes. Run it without me." She walked out. She did not look back when the carriage rolled out of the inn yard. Caleb was on the box. Ruth was beside her. Dr. Mercer had gone ahead to arrange the team at the next post. The road bent west. Charlottesville fell behind them, and Eleanor put her hand flat against her stomach and did not weep until they were 8 miles out. When she did, she wept quietly, and Ruth held her left hand without speaking, and the road went on. Behind them in the inn parlor, Nathaniel Harrow sat at the table for 40 minutes without moving. The innkeeper's wife brought him coffee. He did not drink it. She took it away, brought a brandy, set it down, and went away again. He drank the brandy. He paid his bill. He rode out of Charlottesville at 1 o'clock, and he rode east, and he rode all afternoon and into the dark. His horse went lame the second time at the Cumberland crossing, and he traded it for another at a smith's that knew his name and did not ask why his coat was open. He came up the drive to Harrow Hall at the 2nd hour after midnight. The house was lit at the front door for him the way it was always lit. The footman opened the door. The footman did not look at his face. "Mrs. Harrow's room." "Sir?" "Where is it?" "Where it has always been, sir." "Take me there." The footman took a candle and walked him up the front stair. At the door he stopped because Nathaniel had stopped, and he waited. "Leave me." "Sir?" The footman went. Nathaniel opened the door. The bed was made. The bed was always made. The curtains were drawn back. The dressing table was clear. The cream-colored gown she had worn at the supper on the 3rd of July hung in the wardrobe. His hand was on it before he knew what his hand was doing, and the silk was cool, and she had not worn it since. He opened the writing desk drawer. Empty. He opened the second drawer. Empty. He opened her wardrobe wider. 3 plain gowns hung where there had been 10. Her riding habit was gone. The green wool was gone. The lavender was gone. He stood with his hand still on the cream silk, and he counted the empty hangers, and there were 7, and he stopped counting at 7 because he did not trust himself past 7. He went to the bookshelf. He pulled out a volume of sermons. Behind it stood another volume of sermons which made no sense until he pulled out the second one and saw the dust in a square behind it where a different book had once been. He pulled out a third, a fourth. Then he stopped because he was a grown man on his knees in his wife's empty bedroom, pulling sermons off a shelf at 2 in the morning, and the only sound in the house was the sound of his own breathing, which had gone wrong somewhere between Charlottesville and the front gate. He sat down on the floor. He sat with his back against her bed and his hands open in his lap, and he looked at the cream gown in the wardrobe across the room, and he said her name once into the empty space. Eleanor. The room did not answer. He did not move for an hour. When he moved, it was to the cedar trunk at the foot of her bed. It was the small one, the one she had brought from her father's house. The brass had been polished by Ruth that spring, and the polish was beginning to dull. He lifted the lid. It was nearly empty. A few winter linens, a folded shawl, a small wooden box with her father's hand on the lid. He opened the box. Inside was a single sheet of paper folded once. He took it out. He unfolded it. It was Eleanor's hand. But it was not Eleanor's hand at 30. It was Eleanor's hand at 25, the way she had written before her father died, the way she had written when she signed letters with an upward curl on the Y in her name. The date at the top was the 8th of June, 2 summers past. My own foolish husband, it began. He stopped breathing. You will not read this, the letter said. You will not read this because I am not going to send it. I am going to keep it in my box because there are things a wife is supposed to feel and not say, and a Whitfield woman especially is supposed to feel and not say, and my mother told me on her deathbed never to write down a feeling I would not show. So this is a letter you will not have. But I am writing it anyway because last week you came home from the legislature with mud on your boots, and you sat on the kitchen step, and you told Ruth a story about Senator Madison's hat, and you laughed. You have not laughed like that in a long time, and I stood at the pantry door and I watched you laugh, and I thought, this is the boy I married. This is the boy who came up the drive at Whitfield with his hat in his hand and asked my father if he might write to me. This is the boy who wrote me from Williamsburg and signed it foolish. This is the boy. I do not know where the boy goes when you are at supper with Colonel Hayes. I do not know where the boy goes when you are reading the Richmond paper at breakfast and you do not look up. I do not know where the boy goes. But I want you to know in this letter, you will not read that I have been looking for him. I have been looking for him every day for 2 years, and I have not stopped. Yours in a way I will not say to your face, Eleanor. He read it 3 times. He folded it. He puts it back in the box. He put the box back in the trunk. He closed the lid. He sat with his hand on the lid for a long time. Then he got up and went down to the parlor. The parlor was as it had been on the night of the 3rd of July. The footman had cleaned it. The decanters were full. The Madeira glasses had been polished. The chairs were set the way they had been set for the supper, 4 of them, around the small table by the window, the 5th turned toward the fire. He did not sit in any of the chairs. He stood in the doorway, where Eleanor had stood with the tray. He stood exactly there. He stepped forward once. He measured the distance with his eye. 3 feet to the chair where he had sat. 3 feet to where he had laughed. He stood at that mark for a long time. Then he walked to the small table by the window. He poured a Madeira. He did not drink it. He carried it back to the doorway. He set it down on the parquet at the place where Eleanor's feet had been on the night of the 3rd of July. He sat down beside it. He sat down on the parlor floor with his back against the doorframe and the unopened glass beside him, and he did not drink it, and he did not move, and he did not weep, and he stayed there until the gray light came in through the east window. He stayed there past the light. He stayed there until the cook came down for the kitchen fire at 5 and stopped in the doorway and put her hand to her mouth and did not speak. He looked at her. He did not ask her not to tell the other servants. He did not ask her anything. He said very quietly the only sentence he had been able to find in all the long night, the only sentence that he believed all the way through. She was 3 feet away. The cook backed out of the doorway and went to the kitchen and did not speak of it to anyone in that house for the rest of her life. Nathaniel Harrow sat on the floor of the parlor where he had set it. Outside, the August sun came up over the south fields where the tobacco was tall, the same fields the carriage had passed at 6 on the morning Eleanor Whitfield Harrow had not looked back. Inside, the empty glass of Madeira caught the first light. And Nathaniel Harrow did not, for the first time in his life, know what a man like him was supposed to do next. The valley took her in like a mother. Mrs. Tate was on the front step before the carriage stopped. Her sleeves rolled to the elbow, her gray hair coming out of its knot, the way it had come out of its knot when Eleanor was 9 years old and had ridden up that same drive on a pony with Jonathan behind her. "Miss Eleanor." "Mrs. Tate." "Get out of that coach, child. You look half a ghost." Jonathan was behind her. He came down the steps 2 at a time, the way he came down all stairs, and he took Eleanor's hand in both of his, and he did not say anything at all for a long moment. He just looked at her. "You came." "I came." "You came," he said again. He looked at Ruth. He looked at Caleb. He nodded at Caleb, the way a Whitfield man nodded at a boy who had brought his sister home. Caleb sat up straighter on the box. "Get her inside, Mrs. Tate. Get her sat down. Get her tea." "John?" "Get her tea, Mrs. Tate." "I am getting her tea." He turned back to Eleanor. "I won't ask you tonight." "Thank you." "I won't ask you tomorrow either. You tell me when you tell me. Until then, this house is your house, and the man's name is not spoken in this house, and the door is bolted at sundown." She had not expected to weep at her brother. She had spent 8 weeks not weeping. But Jonathan's hand was on her wrist, the way her father's hand had been when she was small, and she put her forehead against his shoulder for 1 count of 3, and she did not say anything, and he did not say anything, and Mrs. Tate had the wisdom to look at the sky and pretend she had not seen. Inside child. Yes, Mrs. Tate. The valley fed her. The valley let her be. Mrs. Tate cooked her 3 meals a day and did not let her come into the kitchen except in the morning. Anna Coombs, the midwife, rode up from Front Royal on the 2nd day and put both hands on Eleanor's belly and listened with a small wooden trumpet and said, "Strong boy in there, or strong girl, either way she's loud." Jonathan came up in the evenings from his land south of the river, and he ate with her, and he talked about cattle prices, and the trouble in Spain, and the new bank in Winchester, and he did not ask her about her husband, and he did not look at her the way men look at women they are about to ask things of. Ruth slept in the room next to hers. The first week she did not sleep. The second week she slept 4 hours. The third week she slept 5. By the 4th week she was sleeping 7, and Anna Coombs was telling her to stop walking down to the river in the late afternoon, because it tired her, and she was not doing it because she liked the river. She was doing it because she had begun to feel for the first time in 3 years that her body belonged to her. The first letter came at the end of August. Ruth brought it up on the silver tray. "Mrs. Harrow." "Yes." "From Harrow Hall." Eleanor did not take it. On the side table, Ruth. "Ma'am?" "Do not open it. Do not throw it away. Put it in the small drawer of the writing case." "Yes, ma'am." A second letter came in the first week of September, a third on the 15th, a fourth on the 22nd. She did not open any of them. On the 3rd of October, she walked into her writing room and opened the drawer and took all 4 letters out and laid them on the desk in the order they had come. She sat down. She looked at them a long time. "Ruth." "Ma'am." "Bring me the letter knife." Ruth brought it. The first letter was 3 pages. It was the letter of a man trying to explain. She read it once. She folded it. She set it aside. The second was 2 pages. It was the letter of a man trying to apologize. She read it once. She set it beside the first. The third was 1 page. It was the letter of a man no longer trying anything, which was the first letter that had a heart in it. She read it twice. The fourth was 4 lines. Eleanor. "I will come at the autumn rain. I will come if you let me come. I will not come if you do not. Tell me." Nathaniel. She put her hand over the page. She closed her eyes. She wrote 1 line on a folded sheet, sealed it without rereading, and gave it to Ruth that afternoon for the post. "Come." That was all the letter said. Just the 1 word. He came on the 17th of October in autumn rain. He did not come with a carriage. He came on horseback alone, his coat wet through. He did not come up to the front door. He stopped at the gate and got down off the horse and stood at the gate with his hat in his hand, and Jonathan saw him from the parlor window and put his glass down and said very quietly, "Eleanor, I know. You sure you want this?" "I'm sure." "You want me here when you open the door?" "No." "You want me in the back room with the door cracked?" "Yes." "You want Ruth in this kitchen with a poker?" "That won't be necessary, John." "It will be necessary if I say it is." "Yes, Ruth in the kitchen with a poker." "Good." She walked down to the door. She opened it before he knocked. He was on the bottom step, wet through his hat in both hands, and the rain was coming down the back of his collar, and he did not say her name, because he had been told somewhere on the road between Harrow Hall and the valley that he was not to say her name until she said his first. "Mr. Harrow." "Mrs. Harrow." "Come in, Mr. Harrow. The rain is in your boots." He came in. She did not sit him by the fire. She sat him in a hard chair in the front parlor at a table by the window with the rain still coming down outside, and she sat across from him and she folded her hands. She did not pour him tea. "Speak." He looked at her. He looked at her for a long moment. The lines at the corners of his mouth had deepened. His hair was wet. His coat was wet. There was mud on his cuff he had not noticed. "Eleanor." "Speak, Mr. Harrow." "I do not know what to say." "Then we will sit here until you do." He sat. She sat. The clock on the mantel went 5 minutes. The rain went on outside. "I am sorry." "Yes." "I am sorry for the words I said in the parlor." "You said that in your letters." "I am sorry that I meant them." She did not speak. "I am sorry that I meant most of them," he said. "And I am sorrier still that I meant the worst of them. I am sorrier than that I have spent 2 months trying to find a way to tell you I did not mean them, and have failed because I did mean them, and the failure is the only honest thing I have brought up that drive." She let the words sit. "Go on." "I came to ask you to let me listen." "To what?" "To you. To whatever you wish to say. I came 3 days on the road. I will sit in the rain if I have to. I will sit in a hard chair across from you and not pour my own tea. I will sit in any chair you put me in. I came to listen. Eleanor and I came knowing I might listen for a year and not be heard, and I came anyway." She did not speak for a long minute. "Mr. Harrow." "Yes." "You may stay tonight." "Eleanor, in the north room. Mrs. Tate will show you. The bolt on that door is on your side. Lock it. I want to know that you are locking it from the inside." "Yes." "Tomorrow we will see." "Tomorrow." "One day at a time, Mr. Harrow. That is the only kind of day I have left to give." He nodded once. At the threshold, Mrs. Tate stopped him. "You wipe your boots, Mr. Harrow." "Yes, ma'am." "And you don't speak to her till she speaks to you in the morning." "Yes, ma'am." "And one more thing, Mr. Harrow." "Ma'am." "You do anything in this house that I don't like, you don't sleep in this house the next night. Are we clear?" "We are clear, Mrs. Tate." He followed her up. Eleanor did not move from the parlor until the door of the north room closed, and she heard the bolt slide. Then she sat down on the floor in her own front parlor in the 7th month of her child, and she did not weep, but she did put her hand over her mouth for a long time. The slow weeks began. He did not speak at breakfast. He waited for her to speak first. The first morning she said only, "Mr. Harrow." He said, "Mrs. Harrow." That was all. The second morning she said, "Did you sleep?" "No." "Why?" "Because you are in this house, and I am in this house, and I have not been in the same house with you for 8 weeks. I spent 8 weeks practicing the words you would say to me this morning, and you said only Mr. Harrow and I had not practiced that. Then practice it tomorrow." "Yes." The third morning she said, "What did you do after I left?" "I sat on the parlor floor for 3 days." "All 3. "All 3. The cook brought me bread. I did not eat it. Senator Pendleton came on the Tuesday. I did not see him. And then I went to the library. I read your books. The dummies you had put in. I pulled them off the shelves. There were 16 empty places." There were. I sat in the library a week. What did you do there? I made a list of every conversation we had in the last year that I should have heard differently. How long was the list? 41 items. She set down her cup. 41. 41. I have it with me. In the saddlebag. I will not show it to you unless you ask. I will think about asking. She did not ask for 2 weeks. When she did, he brought the list down in the morning, and they read it together at the kitchen table, and she did not cry, and he did not cry, but he stopped on item 23, because his throat would not let him say the words, and she said very quietly, "Skip it, go on." "I cannot." "Then I will." She read item 23. It was the morning of her father's funeral. She had asked him to ride with her in the carriage from the church. He had said he had a meeting at the courthouse. He had not had a meeting at the courthouse. "I had not," he said. "I had no meeting." "I know. I did not want to be in the carriage." "I know that too." "I am sorry." "Yes. I will not say I am sorry again about this one, Eleanor. Once is enough for it. If I say it again, I am asking you to lift the weight off me, and the weight is mine." She looked at him a long time. "Yes, Mr. Harrow." She slid the list back across to him. "Keep it. Read it once a year on the 3rd of July, until you can read it without flinching." Yes. There were setbacks. In the 4th week at supper, he said something about Ruth that he should not have said. He did not mean it cruelly. He said it the way men of his class said such things, without thinking, the way a man might say the weather without listening to what the weather actually was. "Ruth has been a good servant to you, Eleanor." Eleanor set down her fork. "Ruth is not my servant, Mr. Harrow." Ruth was my mother's woman, and she came with me to your house because my mother on her deathbed asked her to, and she draws her wages from the Whitfield estate, and not from yours, and she has been my friend, Mr. Harrow. You have lived in a house with her for 3 years, and you do not know that, and the not knowing is exactly the thing I left." He did not speak for a long moment. "Tell me about her." "Tell you what?" "What I should have known. Ruth's husband was sold off a Carolina place in 1804. Her son was sold off the same place in 1807. She has been a free woman since 1809, because my father bought her papers and asked nothing in return except that she stay with my mother, which she would have done without papers anyway. She knows scripture better than the Reverend at Front Royal. She reads 3 newspapers, and she has been keeping the books of my mother's estate for 9 years. Do not call her my servant again, Mr. Harrow. Do not call her my woman. Her name is Ruth Bell." He did not eat for the rest of the supper. That night he wrote a letter of apology to Ruth and slid it under her door. Ruth read it in the morning. She read it twice. She put it in her own apron pocket. She did not show it to Eleanor. She did not speak of it to Eleanor. But the next morning at breakfast, when Nathaniel said good morning to her, she said good morning back, and she had not said good morning back to him in 3 years. The labor began on the 8th of December, just past midnight. Eleanor was in her own bed. Ruth was beside her. Mrs. Tate had built the fire up. Anna Coombs had been sent for at the first sign and was already on the road from Front Royal. Dr. Mercer had been at the house a week. Nathaniel was in the north room. The bolt was still on his side of the door, as it had been every night since October. Mrs. Tate knocked at 1 in the morning. "Mr. Harrow, I am awake." "It has started." "How long?" "A long time yet. First child." "May I?" "You may not come in. You may sit in the kitchen. You may drink coffee. You may pray. You may not come past the kitchen door, Mr. Harrow." He went to the kitchen. He sat at the table. He did not drink coffee. He did pray. He had not prayed in 9 years. He prayed the way a man who has forgotten the words prays, which is to say, he sat with his hands open on the table, and he said her name into them, and he asked God very quietly for a thing he was not sure he had any right to ask for. The snowstorm came in at 3 in the morning. By 5, the wind was loud enough that he could hear it through the kitchen walls. By 7, the snow was past the lower step of the porch. By 8, Mrs. Tate came down to the kitchen with her hands red and her apron wet. "There's trouble." He stood. "What kind?" Bleeding. More than there ought to be. Anna and Dr. Mercer are with her. Will she? I do not know, Mr. Harrow. Mrs. Tate? I do not know. Sit down. I cannot sit down. Then stand. But you do not come past this door. I will come back when there is a thing to tell. She went. He did not sit down. He stood at the kitchen door for 1 hour. He stood there for a second. He stood there for a third. The clock in the parlor struck 11, and he did not hear it. The cook brought him bread, and he did not eat it. Jonathan came in at noon, wet through his coat snowy, and stood beside him at the door, and neither of them spoke. There was nothing to be said by a brother to a husband who had once called a woman a gentle burden, and who was now standing in a kitchen waiting to learn whether she was alive. At 1 in the afternoon, Mrs. Tate came down. She had blood on her apron. Nathaniel could not speak. She looked at him a long moment. It is a boy. He still could not speak. And she is alive, Mr. Harrow. He sat down on the kitchen floor. He sat down the way a man sits down when his legs no longer belong to him, and he put both hands flat on the floorboards, and he did not weep, but he made a sound that was not weeping, and was not laughing, and was not speaking. Jonathan put a hand on his shoulder. Get up, Harrow. I cannot. Get up. Your wife is asking for you. He got up. He climbed the stair with Mrs. Tate. At the door he stopped because Mrs. Tate had stopped, and she had her hand on his arm. Mr. Harrow? Yes. You do not say anything in there but her name. Yes. You do not touch her unless she lifts a hand to you. Yes. And you do not hold that child until she says you may. Yes. She opened the door. Eleanor was on the bed. She was very pale. Her hair was loose. Ruth was beside her with a cloth. Anna Coombs was at the foot of the bed with a basin. Dr. Mercer was at the window with his back turned, washing his hands in a second basin, and there was blood on the cloth at his elbow. And Nathaniel did not look at the blood. He looked at her face. Eleanor. Mr. Harrow. Come closer. He came closer. In the crook of her arm, there was a small bundle. The bundle was wrapped in linen. The bundle was very small. The face was red and the eyes were closed, and the hand was a fist. This is your son. He could not speak. He is named Samuel. Samuel. For my father. He nodded. He could not do anything but nod. Do you want to hold him? May I? You may. She lifted the bundle. He took it. He took it the way a man takes a thing he does not believe he is allowed to hold. He cradled it against his chest, the small weight of it, the heat of it through the linen, the small breath against the open collar of his shirt. He did not weep when he looked at the boy. He wept when he looked at Eleanor. He wept the way a man weeps who has spent 41 items in a list trying to find the bottom of a thing and has only just now found it. He wept silently. He did not put the child down. He did not turn his face away. She watched him. She did not speak. After a long while she said very softly, You wanted an heir, Mr. Harrow. I do not want an heir. What do you want? You. You are sure. I am sure. There will be no more children, Mr. Harrow. He went still. Anna Coombs told me an hour ago. She told Dr. Mercer. They told me there will not be another. Whatever I had to give this child took. Do you understand what I am telling you? I understand. You wanted the arithmetic, Mr. Harrow. The arithmetic has been run. The land is mine by my father. The reputation is mine by my brother. There is one son, and there will be one son, and there will not be another. That is the column. Eleanor, subtract me from it, Mr. Harrow. There is nothing left of the column without me. I want you to look at the page, and I want you to know that. And I want you to decide tonight in this room with this child in your arms whether you have come up that drive in the rain for the arithmetic or for the woman who is lying in this bed. Because tomorrow morning I will not ask you again. He looked at her. He held his son tighter against his chest. He did not speak for a long time. The wind was loud at the window. Anna Coombs had not moved from the foot of the bed. Dr. Mercer had not turned from the basin. Ruth was holding Eleanor's left hand and looking at the wall, because there are moments a woman knows to look at a wall and not at a marriage. Eleanor. Yes. I came up the drive for you. Say it again. I came up the drive for you, not for the arithmetic, not for the column, not for a son, for you. I would have come up the drive if there had been no child. I came up the drive for the woman at the door who did not drop the tray. I came up the drive for the woman who wrote the letter she did not send. I came up the drive for you, Eleanor, and I would come up it again tomorrow and the next day and every day until there is no more drive to come up. I will be telling you this when I am an old man and you have stopped asking. She closed her eyes. She did not speak. She kept his hand in her hand for a long time. When she opened her eyes, she said only, "Sit down, Mr. Harrow." He sat down. He sat down on the edge of the bed with his son in his arms and his wife's hand in his other hand, and the snow came on against the window, and outside the wind moved over the valley, and inside the room there was a small bundle breathing against his collarbone. For the first time since the 3rd of July, Nathaniel Harrow did not feel that he was standing 3 feet from the door of his own life. He was inside the room. He had been let in. The boy slept on his chest that first night. He slept on his chest because Eleanor had let him, and because Mrs. Tate had said the warmth was good for a small one, and because Nathaniel did not for the first time in his life want to put a thing down before he had to. He sat up in the chair by the bed and did not lie down to sleep. He stayed upright. He watched Eleanor breathe. He listened to his son breathe. He listened to the snow at the window, and he counted in his head the seconds between Eleanor's breaths because Anna Coombs had said in passing on her way out of the room that if the rhythm changed in the night, they were to send for her. The rhythm did not change. It did not change at midnight. It did not change at 1. It did not change at 3. By 4, he understood that she was going to live. By 5, he understood that he was too. Mrs. Tate came in at 6. "You did not sleep, Mr. Harrow." "No, Mrs. Tate." "You will sleep tomorrow." "Yes, Mrs. Tate." "Give me the boy." He gave her the boy. He stood up out of the chair. He stood beside the bed a long moment looking at his wife's face on the pillow, and Mrs. Tate looked at him over her shoulder and did not speak. She had been a midwife's helper at Whitfield in 1791, and had seen many men stand beside many beds, and she knew the kind of standing she was looking at. "Go down to the kitchen, Mr. Harrow. There is coffee, and there is a Mrs. Coombs who would like to have a word with you." He went down. Anna Coombs was at the kitchen table. She had a cup of coffee in front of her, and she had not touched it, and when Nathaniel came in, she did not stand up. "Sit down." He sat. "Your wife told you what I told her." "Yes." "You believed her." "Yes. I want to say it again to your face, Mr. Harrow, because some men do not believe a thing until a person who is not their wife says it to them. There will be no more children. Your wife bled hard. She bled harder than I have seen a woman bleed and live in 11 years. She is going to walk. She is going to nurse. She is going to live. But she is not going to bear another child, and if she tries, she will die in the trying. Do you understand what I am saying?" "I understand. Are you a man who can live with that?" "Yes." "Mr. Harrow." "Yes." "Look at me when you say it." He looked at her. "I can live with that, Mrs. Coombs." She watched him a long moment. Then she picked up her coffee and drank. "Then welcome to your son's life," she said. "And keep your hands out of your wife's business until she asks for them." "Yes, Mrs. Coombs." The weeks moved like that. He did not go back to Harrow Hall in December. He did not go back in January. The overseer wrote letters, and he answered them by post. Senator Pendleton wrote in February inquiring after his health and his return to the spring session, and he wrote back saying he would not attend. Pendleton wrote again more sharply. He wrote back more shortly. In March, he wrote a third letter to the Speaker of the Virginia House, formally declining his seat for the year. He did not tell Eleanor. She found out when Mrs. Tate brought the post up and the letter from the Speaker's office returning. His declination was on the breakfast tray. "Mr. Harrow." "Yes." "This letter." I see it. You did not consult me. He set down his cup. I did not consult you, because I have not yet learned how to consult you. And I did not want to consult you badly. I declined the seat. I will tell you why, if you will let me. Tell me. Because I am not the man who should hold it. The man who held it last year was a man who told his guests in his parlor that he ran an estate by arithmetic. I do not believe that man should make laws for the Commonwealth of Virginia. I am going to spend a year not being that man, and at the end of the year, if you and I agree that I have unlearned him sufficiently, I will consider standing again. If we do not agree, I will not stand again. The seat is the easiest thing I have ever given up. She did not speak for a moment. Mr. Harrow. Yes. You did not consult me, but you are consulting me now. Yes? Then I am consulted. The seat may stay declined. We will see in a year. She poured his tea. Colonel Hayes came in the 4th week of May. He came up the drive at 4 in the afternoon in his uniform coat on a sorrel mare he had not earned. He did not announce himself in advance. He had been at Harrow Hall in July. He believed he was still entitled to Harrow's table. Mrs. Tate saw him from the kitchen window. Mrs. Harrow, Colonel Hayes. Eleanor was at her writing desk in the front parlor. She did not look up. Show him in, and tell Mr. Harrow. Yes, ma'am. He came in with his hat in his hand and his spurs ringing. He looked at Eleanor at the writing desk, and his face did the small, confused thing a man's face did when he had expected to see a hostess and had found a woman at work. Mrs. Harrow? Colonel Hayes. You're looking well? Thank you. I was passing through. I thought to pay my respects. It is kind of you. Is Nat at home? He is in the south field with my brother. He has been called. Very good. I won't trouble you, ma'am, if you have your correspondence. Sit down, Colonel. She did not look up from her writing. Beg pardon. Sit down, Colonel. There is coffee on the side table. Help yourself. Mr. Harrow will be in shortly. He sat. He did not pour coffee. He watched her finish her letter, fold it, seal it, address it, and set it aside. Only then did she put down her pen and turn the writing chair to face him. How was your journey, Colonel? Tolerable, ma'am, tolerable. He cleared his throat. Ma'am, Yes. I had heard a rumor, in Richmond. What rumor, Colonel? That you and Nat had that there had been some... Yes. He stopped. She did not help him. That there was a coolness between you. There was. Ma'am? There was. It has been addressed. I am glad to hear it, Mrs. Harrow. Are you? I am, ma'am. Then we will speak of other things. Nathaniel came in 10 minutes later. He came in with mud on his boots and his sleeves rolled up. He had been pulling fence posts. There was sweat on his collar. Colonel Hayes stood up. By God, Nat. Hayes, you look like a hired man. I have been a hired man this morning. Eleanor's gate hinge gave. Eleanor's gate. The gate to the kitchen garden. Yes. Well. Colonel Hayes laughed the easy laugh of a man who had not yet noticed the room he was in. I see Mrs. Harrow has made a useful husband of you after all. He said it the way he had said things in July. He said it like a joke. He said it the way men of his class said such things at one another to land on the dignity of the wife as a way to lift the dignity of the husband. Nathaniel did not laugh. He set down the rag he had been wiping his hands on. Sit down, Colonel. Nat, sit down. Hayes sat down. Nathaniel did not sit. He stood at the mantel with one hand on it, and he looked at Hayes for a long moment, and Eleanor at the writing desk did not turn her head, but she did not move her hands either, and she did not breathe. Hayes. Nat. Tom. Yes. I want to say a thing to you in this room, and I want to say it once. Nat. Once. Tom. Listen. Hayes nodded. On the 3rd of July last summer in my own parlor at a supper at my own table, I said a great many things about my wife that I should not have said. You laughed at them. Pendleton laughed at them. Marcia's brother-in-law laughed at them. I said the worst of them. The worst of them I will not repeat in this room, because she is in this room and she has heard them once in her life, and she will not hear them twice. The clock on the mantel ticked. Eleanor was at the door, with the Madeira. She heard every word. She left this estate carrying our son. She went to the valley alone. She nearly died in December bringing him into the world. She is alive because she is the most stubborn woman in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and because she was not going to die in a house that would prove me right. Hayes did not move. I came up the drive in October in the rain to ask her to let me listen. She let me. I have been listening since. I am still listening. I will be listening for the rest of my life. Do you hear me, Tom? I hear you. Now, to the thing you said when you came in, the thing about Mrs. Harrow making a useful husband of me. Nat, it was. Yes, it was a thing men of our company say. I have said it about other men's wives. I said it once about your wife in 1812. I owe Mrs. Hayes an apology I have not paid, and I will pay it by post this week. Hayes flushed. Nat, in this house, in this parlor, in front of this woman, you will not speak that way again. Not about her, not about Mrs. Hayes, not about any wife in this Commonwealth. If you cannot keep that promise, Tom, you may finish your coffee and ride. I will not show you the door. I will not be uncivil, but you will not eat at this table tonight. The clock ticked. Hayes did not speak for a long time. Then he stood up. He did not pick up his hat. He stood beside the chair he had been sitting in, and he turned his hat in his hands, the way a man turns a hat when his throat is not working. Mrs. Harrow. Colonel, I owe you an apology. Yes, Colonel. For the words I said in this room this afternoon, and for the words I laughed at on the 3rd of July last summer. Yes, Colonel. I am sorry, Mrs. Harrow. I accept your apology, Colonel. Ma'am, I accept it, Colonel. Sit down. Mr. Harrow will pour you coffee. We will speak of your sons. He sat down. Nathaniel poured. The years moved past them like the river moved past the valley. Samuel walked at 13 months. He spoke his first word at 14, and the word was Mama, which Eleanor had expected, and his second word was Da, which she had not. Ruth Bell got her first letter in 11 years from a man in Charleston who said he might be her son, and she went south, and the man was her son, and she came back to the valley in the autumn, and then she went south again because her son was not coming north, and she had been a long time alone, and Eleanor would not have it otherwise. Caleb married a girl from Front Royal in the spring of 1821. He kept the stable. He named his first son Nathaniel. Nathaniel was not the first time he heard about it sure how he was supposed to feel. He said so to Eleanor. How am I supposed to feel? You are supposed to feel honored, Mr. Harrow. He named the boy for me. He named the boy for the man you have become. Try not to confuse the two. Yes, Mrs. Harrow. He stood for the Virginia House again in 1822. He stood as a different kind of man. He did not stand on the question of land. He did not stand on the question of arithmetic. He stood on a question of the small claims courts in the western counties, and on the question of married women's property in Virginia, which he had read into, and which he had spoken to Eleanor about for 2 winters, and on which she had given him an opinion he had taken to Richmond, and entered into the record without changing a comma. He lost the seat. He had expected to. The men who voted in the western counties did not, in 1822, want a man who had spoken aloud in the Virginia House about a wife's separate estate. He came home in November, and he did not pretend he was not disappointed. Eleanor met him at the door. You lost. I lost. By how much? 41 votes? 41. It is a number I am acquainted with, Mrs. Harrow. She laughed. It was the first time in a long time that she had laughed. The old laugh, the one she had brought up the drive at Whitfield when she was a girl. He heard it. He stopped on the threshold. He set down his bag. Eleanor. Yes. Laugh like that again. I will not laugh on command, Mr. Harrow. I was not commanding. Yes, you were. Then I retract the command. Laugh like that when you like. She laughed again. He came in. There was a night in the 7th year when Eleanor sat in the front parlor with her book in her lap, and the fire low. Samuel was upstairs asleep. Mrs. Tate was in her room on the ground floor with her own fire. Caleb's wife was in the kitchen finishing the bread. The dogs were asleep at the hearth. The clock on the mantel ticked off the slow seconds of a country evening in a country house. Nathaniel came in. He did not say anything when he came in. He did not announce himself. He did not say good evening to her. He came in quietly, the way a man comes into a room he does not want to disturb, and he sat down in the chair across the fire from her, and he did not pick up a book, and he did not pour himself a drink, and he did not ask her what she was reading. He sat. He looked at her. She did not look up at first. She turned a page. She read a paragraph. She turned another page. Then she looked up. He was watching her. He was watching her the way a man watches a thing he does not want to take from. He was not measuring her. He was not deciding what to do with her. He was not arranging her in any column of any arithmetic she could feel from across the room. He was looking at her. That was all. She let the book close in her lap. She looked at him a long moment. The fire moved. The clock ticked. The dogs breathed. She thought very clearly of the night on the 3rd of July, 11 summers, and a lifetime past, when she had stood 3 feet from a parlor door with a tray of Madeira in her hands and had heard a man say what she was worth. The man across the fire was not that man. The man across the fire was the man that man had become. Very slowly, very poorly, with many failures and many late apologies and many nights of standing in many kitchens, waiting to learn whether she was alive. The man across the fire had paid item by item for a list of 41 things and was still paying. The man across the fire did not know at this exact moment that she had decided 11 years ago she would let him pay if he would learn. He had learned. He had learned, and he was learning still, and he was sitting across from her with no question in his face, but the one that was answered every morning when she got out of bed and did not leave him. She smiled at him. It was not a wide smile. It was the small smile a woman gave a husband she had once nearly lost, and once nearly lost herself too. It was a smile she had not given to him in a parlor in Virginia 11 summers ago. It was the smile she had been keeping for a man she had once believed did not exist. He saw it. He did not smile back. Not at first. He looked at her, and his face did the small, still thing his face did now, when he was given a thing he had not earned, and then very slowly, he smiled also. He did not speak. She did not speak. The fire moved. The clock ticked. The dogs breathed. After a long while, he said very quietly, "Eleanor." "Yes, Mr. Harrow. I do not require anything tonight. I know you do not. I came in to sit with you. I know. That is all." "Yes." She turned back to her book. He turned to the fire. The clock struck 9. They sat that way across the fire in a country parlor in the valley of the Shenandoah in a year that no record book in Virginia would think to mark for 1 full hour without speaking. And when the hour was over, and Nathaniel rose and bent and kissed her once on the top of her head, not on her temple, not on the air near her temple, but on the top of her head where her hair was beginning to thread silver, the way his had threaded silver. At 31, Eleanor Whitfield. Harrow closed her book and went up the stair beside her husband. And they did not say anything to each other, because they did not need to, because she had been seen. She had been seen, and she had been kept, and she had been held by hands that had finally learned the difference between holding and owning. He had once called her a burden. He had called her a burden at a supper in his own parlor on the 3rd of July in the summer of 1816, while she stood 3 feet from his door, with the Madeira on a silver tray, and he had not known she was there. He spent the rest of his life learning he had been the burden. He spent it learning that the woman at his door had been carrying him for 3 summers, and had carried him through 41 items on a list, and had carried him up a drive in autumn rain, and had carried him through a snowstorm in December, and had carried him into a valley in Virginia, where the river ran slow, and the gate hinges gave in the spring, and the man he was supposed to be had room finally to grow. He spent the rest of his life carrying her in return. He carried her well. He carried her better year by year. He never carried her perfectly, because no man carries any woman perfectly, and Eleanor would not have respected him if he had pretended to. But he carried her, and she let him, and the carrying went both ways the way it was supposed to. Nathaniel Harrow died in the autumn of 1847 in his own bed in the valley with his wife's hand in his, and his son grown and gone to a wife of his own in Charlottesville, and his grandchild's name on the christening cup at his bedside table. His last word was her name. The way he said it was the way a man says a name when he has finally, after 31 years, said it without armor. Eleanor Whitfield Harrow lived 9 more years. She is buried beside him at the small graveyard above the river in the Shenandoah Valley in the Commonwealth of Virginia, in a plot the Whitfield deed has held since 1791. The stone says her father's name, her mother's name, her husband's name, and her son's name. Beneath those 4 names, on a line of her own choosing dictated to the stonecutter the year before she died, are 5 words. She was seen at last. That is the end of the story of the woman who did not drop the tray. She did not drop it on the 3rd of July. She did not drop it on the day she left. She did not drop it on the day she came home to a man who had finally learned how to hold his own end. She set it down gently in a country parlor in the valley on the 7th year of a second marriage that had nothing to do with arithmetic. And in the end, on the line that mattered most, the line she had paid for in silver and snow and silence, and 3 feet of corridor between a parlor door and a woman who would not for any man's laughter drop a single glass. The stone said, what it had always been, the work of her life to make true. She was seen. She was kept. She was held by hands that had learned at last what hands were for, and that was the whole of it.